Hello, Internet. How are you? So, following up on my discussion, my little talk about kind of free-form, abstract thoughts, connecting one to the other, meandering marketing concepts, and meandering messaging, thought experiments, basically, that are not quite as structured as classic fast fail or lean or agile marketing methods, even though they're in kind of the same umbrella. The purpose, the purpose of the call today, the video, is along that line. Along those lines, yes. Talk about the shady Grady Ent. And I mean the tree. It provides shelter from the light, the sunlight. The shady Grady Ent. Now, I know, you're probably already fast forwarding through this, going to the next video. When I say you, I mean nobody's watching. So, if you were watching, you probably skip to this video right now if you haven't already done it. And that's fine. That's all. I hope you enjoy watching your next video even more. And for that one person who might watch this video, if that happens to be you, which I guess it is if you're watching this video and you just heard me say that, I want to pull back a little from my typical marketing messaging and even my usual talks about trading, and talk about something I think is kind of more interesting, may even be related somewhat, but certainly different. So let's go, shall we? Be an interesting dive. A very brief dive, but a dive into this concept. And it goes like this. Many, many years ago, when the interweb nuts was still considered new, even though it was already a couple decades old or whatever. Even before then, when it was about a decade or a decade and a half old. And I was already in my early days of marketing things between people, being basically a connection between those that could create by programming and those that had the money to pay for it. And although I could also create by programming, I realized I was far better at being the go-between than at actually programming. Maybe I didn't have the patience for it, who knows? I just didn't enjoy the programming side of it as much as I enjoyed connecting the people. And those that needed and those that could provide. They both needed something. And they could both provide the other side with something. And I was the go-between that just made sure what one side got is what they wanted, and what the other side got is what they wanted, etc. And it led me to figure out quite a lot about marketing in those earlier days when tech was only beginning to really play a big role. When computers were marketed as a thing, as opposed to computers were being used heavily to market everything. And this changed the landscape. That whole period of time, when people began to use computers to calculate things faster, to process things faster, to create games and culture, to do a really wide number of things. So that eventually, by the time the internet would become popularized, getting things like information online would become popular, by the time the web would become popular, all these things, that would be, the thing being marketed as much was far less the computer itself, but the products that the computer was creating, right? The computer was just a means to an end. And it was, and in many ways remains, but it was a revolutionary time in history. And I mean in the history of mankind, not just the history of the 20th century or the late 20th century or of a certain period of the industrial age shifting to the information age. No, that shift was a critical time in the overall picture of human history, where we went from doing many things manually to having more and more automated processes done by digital machines, not just machines, analog machines that had to be powered by people, etc. Right? Digital machines that were just purely powered by electricity, zapping through circuit boards containing silicon wafers and microchips and electronic circuits, etc. And as time evolved, those circuits and microchips and wafers became smaller and smaller, to the point where now they're so small at the high end of their precision and technology and all that for decades already, right, scientists and engineers have been developing quantum-based computing chips, right, because the size of the microchip has become so small that there's really no room left to pack anything in a pure physics kind of way. And, they've reached their limits, or they've come real close to them. And the next step is effectively quantum computing, which is really a different way of doing the computing to begin with, if you know anything about it. I'm not going to get into that right now, but it's a very different way of creating the actual technology and the chips, if you will. It's a very different way of organizing and processing the information that runs through the system, the chips. Everything about it is completely different. And yet, if and when quantum computers are achieved on a mass scale, such that every laptop, every tablet, every phone, every new computing device will have them, that will radically change, again, what people are able to do with their computers. However, it will really just be a big step forward more than an actual revolution. The revolution already happened when people shifted from analog to digital. That was effectively the revolution, right? That's what enabled the power of computing with electronic machines. That's what enabled the power of microprocessors and computer chips to allow personal computers, and so on and so forth, right? Networking over great distances enabled the internet, satellite and wireless communications enabled long-distance telecommunications, even interstellar or interspace or whatever communications at great distances. So what we're seeing effectively in human history is a time in which we are literally living through an age of revolution and the immediate effects of it. And I can tell you that while it may seem normal to you, if you look at the overall picture of human history, the time and opportunity we are living through is nothing short of wondrous. Maybe I'll call it not miraculous because, it's not a miracle. It's a product of science. But it is wondrous and amazing. And most importantly, for those who do not want to get left behind or end up just another sheep in this wondrous time and in the fruit that it will yield, I can tell you, as always, there is a world of opportunity for the entrepreneurial person who is innovative and figures out something in some way to exploit this opportunity. Of course, it's more than just that. It's more than just having the entrepreneurial spirit. Yes, that's a big part of it. But it's also having the brains and the wherewithal to do things. And you may even have all those things and still fail miserably for one reason or another. It might be something as simple as your location or your inability to network on a social level or any number of things. Right? It may be you pitched somebody at the wrong time in their life when they weren't interested in that topic. Maybe if you pitched them a week earlier or a week later, you would have, won the golden ticket, so to speak. But life is very often a random series of events, and plenty of bad things happen to the best people. And very many people who certainly deserve success, given all of their effort, never achieve it. In fact, I would say most people never achieve what they would personally call success. If you ask them, do you think you're successful? They might tell you they're happy, they might tell you they're satisfied, but if you ask them, but are you consider yourself successful in what you do, in what you've created or established for yourself? I would say for the most part, people say no. And that's why they're constantly striving to do more. And very few people these days, less and less people, maybe it's not very few, but less and less people are ending their careers at a quote-unquote normal time. In other words, they're not retiring at the usual times. They're finding ways to work longer and longer until practically the very end of their lives. And one reason for that is many people simply cannot afford to retire, right? Which is a devastating reality for a lot of people, and also increasingly common for the simple reason that with all this automation, a lot of people's skills have been commoditized. Everything from arts to even engineering, accounting, business skills, marketing, you name it, copywriting, whatever, right? All of the quote-unquote soft skills that weren't automated by big machines through factory automations in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and early thousands, like car manufacturing, other robotic manufacturing of micro-precision parts, etc. Those skills were already automated a long time ago. So the people that are left in those jobs have relatively safe jobs because somebody has to man the robots still to make sure the robots don't go nuts and destroy the factory. But so apart from the few people you have left in those physical labor jobs, right, those union jobs, etc., people in quote-unquote professional jobs are feeling the impact of microprocessing and data automation, AI, deep learning, etc., increasingly. So now all the soft jobs are on the line. And if you think companies won't use them, well, you're kidding yourself. Now, of course, there are opportunities, and I've made videos explaining how I think the soft jobs will not disappear, just like factory jobs did not entirely disappear. But there will be an impact, and there will be people who do lose their job. There already have been. And that will continue to happen as a trend. But will we see them overall be wiped out? Probably not, because people generally need those things to be done. And as there are more people, more companies, more of these positions will open up, and we will see more people getting hired for this kind of work. That said, it will become increasingly challenging, and more people will be living on more and more subsistence from governments, etc. At which point, we may get to the point where people may indeed live on a universal basic income kind of thing. And I don't just mean in one country, I mean around the world. Would that be bad? Well, it sure wouldn't be good for the entrepreneur who wants to make a fortune. But the entrepreneur who wants to make a fortune will always have the opportunity if he's smart and capable and has good luck. The good luck part should not be ignored. That's kind of the point of this video, is that the element of good luck, good fortune, is all too often not discussed enough because people largely don't want to admit it if they've had it or if they've been burned by it. Some want to talk about it if they've been burned by it, but most people would rather just shut up and deal with the pain and not talk about it. But the fact is, luck is one of the most important ingredients, which is why you should not berate yourself if you don't manage to hit your highest hopes with whatever it is, business venture or other dream that you have. Luck is very much something that includes randomness. And you cannot control all of the randomness. You may be aware of it, you may be able to measure it, you may be able to see in which direction it's going. However, very often randomness will be super random, and even if you're aware of all those things, it will do the other thing than what you expected it to do, at least for a brief moment. And that can be often enough to wreck your plans. So luck is very powerful, and it can be good for you, and it can be very bad for you. And so the best thing to do is to operate as if there is no luck. Be prepared as much as you can be in case the luck goes against you. But do not count on your luck because, generally speaking, you cannot count on it. Now, there are some people who say, oh, I'm the luckiest person, I always have things go right for me, etc., etc. Great, wonderful. They've found a way for themselves, or they've been born into a situation with, or they've earned their way into, or they've reached a situation where their luck is very often positive, and they think luck is what you make of it. Yes, to some degree, luck is what you make of it. However, even if luck is what you make of it, luck is also random. So you should not count on it. You should always operate as if there is no such thing, and you should always be prepared as if the worst of it is coming for you. Not to sound paranoid, but just to be realistic and not depend on something that is so random as luck. And with that said, I wish you all much success and happy. Cheers.